happened here, not at Crossing Vineyard so much because we didn't really get the winery open at that point, but 17 years ago, Larry, you remember, I think you were there that night.
Yes.
Scott kicked off his campaign here at our home, the David Barton Taylor house. We live right here on the property. It's the old house that you drive right by that doesn't look like much. You know, it's a big secret, you know? And I can tell you that David Barton Taylor, who was an interesting character because his father, Benjamin Taylor, was one of the original oarsmen that rowed Washington across the river. And you may not know it, but Washington's Crossing was never called Washington Crossing. It was Taylorsville for the Taylor family, hence Taylorsville Road. So David Barton Taylor built our home and owned 300 acres here. And yes, can you imagine? And of course, all the buildings you see down in the crossing were all Taylor homes, including the old Lavender Hall. They built Lavender Hall, which is now reopening as the Greystone, right? So we are the only Taylor home that is still a private home. And hopefully we're going to keep it that way for sure, for many years to come. This is a pretty emotional night for me, as I'm sure it is for you, because this is your last outing. And I remember your first outing. And yeah, and by the way, Ellen made sure to tell me that. This is your and Ellen, of course, you have done this for a lot of years, I know, believe me. We've been there with you side by side. And I can tell you, Scott, I remember that first night. I do. And I hope you're going to say a couple words about that first night, because it was an interesting first night in the muddy boards that we had lined up here. So we met all down at our house, and we had a beautiful kickoff. But what a lot of you don't know is what happened before that meeting. Because Scott and I actually go back about 25 years. And he was one of my attorneys. And interestingly, he called me one day and he said, you know, I'm thinking about running for the state legislature. He said, what do you think about this? And we talked for about 2 hours that day, I remember that. And at the end, I said, look, you have to do what you have to do. And if you think it's the right thing to do, go ahead out and do it. And of course, in those days, he wasn't known, and the party didn't know him, so it was kind of an uphill climb. And I remember the petition, and getting all those signatures.
Oh boy.
And I remember getting on the ballot, and I remember you winning. And so, for me, this is a very special night because it is like a bookend almost. It's the end of a period, but it's the beginning of a period. And I'm so happy for you, Wendy. I'm so happy that I know you've done a couple things before, but this is your official first one. Just single out a second, Teresa Carroll sitting here, say hello. And if you all don't know Teresa, everyone thinks Teresa is our daughter because of her name being Carol. It turns out she is our niece, and she is really our daughter, I guess, aren't you? Yeah, for many ways. And I was so fortunate because I got to give Teresa away for her wedding to Larry many years ago in Hawaii. So that was a great walk down that aisle for sure. So this is kind of a very special night. It's special to have you kick off tonight your campaign. And just know that the Carroll family is with you all the way. And I just can't tell you enough. You got to win this. You got to win this. You really got to win this. And I think we're all in agreement with that. So the best to you, Scott, my dear friend. And you're not getting rid of this. You do know that. You're not getting rid of this for sure. And kick it over to Larry. Larry, if you'd come up and say a few words, please.
Oh boy.
You were not warned, huh?
No, not warned. Brought all of the various iterations of our hats
Petri
we had. Which was your favorite? I think this is classic. Classic. We've had for such a long time, and it probably was about exactly this time of the year when I first met Scott, and right before the meeting at the Carrolls, I had gotten a call from a woman named Gretel Bleich, who was the local Republican chair in Northampton at the time, and she said to me, "I want you to come to a meeting and start getting involved. There's a guy named Scott Petri who's going to run for state rep." So I did, and Scott and I hit it off very quickly. And a couple days after we had first met, Scott called me and said, I spoke with Gretel, and we decided that you're going to be my campaign manager.
It's better than getting a no.
I think my blood pressure went up a lot. I was a little struck with panic because at that time the only campaign I'd ever run was my own for Township Auditor in Northampton, and at the time if you had an R behind your name, you really weren't managing or strategizing anything. You just walked into an election. So, but I was very honored. We hit the ground running. Shortly thereafter, we got a campaign office that was in Richborough in the old Shopping Bag Shopping Center. I remember there was one night, it was a Saturday night, we were working there late. Ellen had just left along with MB Morey from HRCC. Scott and I finished what we were doing. We walked outside. We were very unceremoniously greeted by a guy in a pickup truck, sort of making circles. And he pulled right up to us and spewed a bunch of profanities at us, and no uncertain terms said, Scott, if you don't withdraw, we're going to kill you. And I said, all right, I thought to myself, wow, maybe I'm not cut out for campaign manager. But we decided to stick it out. The next morning, Ellen called me and said, why don't you come over to the campaign office? I showed up and the police were there, and whoever that guy was had broken off the locks to the front door. And so it was a little scary start, but Carl Churkin wasn't nicest of opponents, but a couple years later we got someone even worse. Won't mention names, but truly, through most of our campaigns, Scott ended up either having just a nominal opponent, or there were some races he had no opponent.
And ones I liked.
It had absolutely nothing to do with my campaign managing prowess. It was the work that Scott did in the legislature, without question. And we know he had incredible help by the best wife of a legislator in history. And help from Teresa, Pat, Carolyn, and Tom Doherty, who sends his good wishes. He had knee surgery, so he couldn't make it out. But an incredible staff that Scott had. 5 years ago, with Scott's encouragement, I decided to run for supervisor in Northampton. And everybody who has run for office knows when you go knock on doors, you got to have your stump speech. You got to have that quick speech, get your points across so that you incentivize people to vote for you. And mine was very simple. Knock on the door, open the door, and say, hey, I'm going to be just like Scott Petri. That was Seriously, I would tell people, I'm going to work 24/7 like Scott. I'm going to get to know my constituents, know the issues they care about like Scott, and I'm going to do it with integrity, just like Scott. And I can tell you, at the end of that election, I got more votes than any other supervisor candidate in Northampton history. So, telling people I was going to be just like Scott paid off, without question. And it truly, it has been an honor.
No, it's been my honor, Larry.
Thank you. Get to know you and Ellen and Drew over these past, 16 years.
15 years, 1 month, and 1 day, but in office.
Truthfully, I know that if you do half as well the authority as you've done as legislator and as you are as a human being, the authority is getting the best gift they ever could have gotten.
Thank you. That's very touching. Very touching. So I'm going to talk a little bit, just to reflect, because there are a lot of people in this room I owe a tremendous amount of thanks to. And, you know, Tom told the story of how it started, and and it was very glamorous. It was a beautiful night, it was cold. We came over and we walked on these planks, and they were all wobbly. And we were about 25, 30 feet over this way. And it was a former horse stall, and he said, this is where we're going to build the winery. This has always been my son's dream. We only have, you know, I knew he and Chris only have one child.
Limited edition, we call it.
Limited edition, that's what we talk about. And this is my son's dream, and this is what we're going to do. And I'm looking around, I'm like, yeah, okay, I guess. Obviously, none of this was here, and you can only imagine the love that goes into, you know, this operation. And the wine is really, really good. I don't know what vintage I'm having right now, but it really is exceptional. But it's because of the love that you and your family members have for each other. And, you know, look, when I represented Tom, we did a lot of things. I remember, I'll just telling you, we were in one room once, and he had a major problem with a bank construction job. And he was able, because he's very gifted and adept on his feet, as you can tell, he had everybody lined up. There was one female in the room, and she was the head lawyer for this firm, McCarter in English. Mm-hmm. And she said, well, you boys may have all worked this out, but, and she came back, she gave you a run for your money, but we did get it resolved, didn't we? She was tough, a little expensive a thing. But tough as nails.
The small ones are always the toughest.
So it was a fun night, and but really threading back a little bit, what happened was when I was 18, I got bitten with the bug of being a representative. There was a guy he actually lived in Lancaster County, but it was from Chester County. And I always thought I'd want to do it. And then I got involved in, with a law firm, and two mentors that were, really fantastic gentlemen became a partner very quickly within 3 years. And I thought initially that was a major compliment until I realized I was making so much in referrals I was bringing in, and wouldn't really have me pay that all out. So they gave me the opportunity to buy into the firm. So the money I was making, I really just, felt it over. But in all seriousness, it was a great career. I got a chance to manage a firm, manage personnel, and understand what it's like to sweat a payroll. And ultimately, that idea of, gee, can we make the payroll this year? What's the insurance going to be like? It prepared me for the legislature. And then, a little known secret, sorry Tom, it's going to come out now. So one of Harry Fawkes's top lieutenants went to him and said, and probably to others knowing Harry, who can we find to fill this void that is going to be left by the former state rep? And one of the people that had been selected or thought about was his chief of staff. And Roy Reinert's chief of staff, the first time Harry met him, he met him during the summer, during the Grange Fair, which is the great place where all Republicans end up growing up to run for office. And he was in a Hawaiian shirt. And that just didn't go with Harry. He said, no, that's not going to be my guy. And so Tom Brophy, who has been my consigliere the whole way, and my advisor, put this flea in my ear. And one of the partners in my firm wasn't real happy about that. But initially, it really looked like it was going to be an opportunity to screen. And for those of you that are committee people, and there are many in this room, you know what that screening is like. But for me, I figured, no, it's going to be like 5 or 10 people or so, and I had this speech in my mind, and there were 5 candidates, all very, very good, lined up. A couple from Northampton, which was the biggest part of the district, and then myself. And when I walked in the room, I see there's, Fawkes, the Profees, the Greenwoods, you name it, everybody that is influential in our county and our public servants. And let's start talking about what those kind of people are. They're the people you see at the fire company events, the soccer events, the community events. And the reason we've been successful as a party is because we pick people that have big hearts, that work hard, that are involved in their community. And so And when you go in front of a room of 100+ people and you're to give a stump speech, if you don't have a lump in your throat and you don't think humility, and I just threw out whatever I thought I was going to say, and I sat there thinking to myself, you know what, if you say what you're thinking you're going to say, you're going to offend somebody in the room and you won't even know who you offended or why, but you will have. So I really observed at what the party had to offer. We have a phenomenal party. Sometimes when we get bored, we like to fight with each other. That's probably not a good recipe for success. I would suggest that we try not to do that. We try to support each other. But that's how it started, and I screamed, and I candidly did not think I would get an opportunity to run. And so when I did, I wasn't completely prepared. And somebody standing next to me might be having a little bit of that feeling. So once Tom put the flea in my ear, then I had to do the thing that all candidates have to do, and they have to talk to their family. And immediately, at every point, I've had 100% support by my wife. And if you don't have that, you cannot successfully run for office, and you cannot successfully succeed. One of my colleagues is here with his wife. He understands that. And Frank, you know, and his wife are like Ellen and I were. They're like this. They go to events together, they participate. We actually like her more than we like Frank.
Me too.
Yeah, I agree. So, once that happened, the boulder started rolling, but it was not smooth at all. What happened, because I was not the endorsed candidate, I had to run on my own and had to make my own way at first. One of the things I did was a rookie mistake, and most people in this room don't know, but if, you know, Jim Cawley were here, he certainly knows. I went out, I downloaded a form. I thought it was the right form for endorsements. It turned out it was the wrong form. And I had just doctored it up. You know what lawyers do. You get a form, and it says something, you cross it out, you fill it in, and you just make it work. So I finished the weekend, and on the weekend before having to file. So you file, your last day is file on Tuesday. I'm ready. I've got over 1,000 signatures. They're all in the wrong form. On a Friday, somehow, I guess Gretel is getting a signature from one of the Sollys, Barbara Solly, and her husband had been a committee person. And they take a look at it, and they go, these are the wrong forms. Well, by Monday morning, I'm figuring out, how am I going to get 300+ signatures that are perfect? And I really need more like 600 in one weekend. I got up early, and of course, Ellen's perfectly calm. Thank God, because I was not. I got up early, I'm at the shopping center, and after 1 hour, from 6 to 7, I call her up, I said, I have 5 signatures. At this rate, we're in deep, honey, don't worry, she's photocopying, she's calling, she's got people going out. I'm at the shopping center, I'm seeing people, I come up to somebody, Tom, can you sign this? I signed it for you last week. I know, but just in case, why don't you sign? I can't tell anybody to do things. So, you know, it was a pride thing, and we got it done. And I remember distinctly, we're at Fitz's fundraiser. At that point, he has his annual St. Patty's Day. And I come in, and Jim says to me, so do you have extra signatures? I said, yeah. I'm thinking, how does he know that I messed this pooch up? Well, everybody knows, right? We know how the lieutenants find out. And I said, I got 700. 700 more? Yeah, 700 more. I'm going to turn in 1,700 signatures. He said, okay, wait, don't go anywhere. Stay right there. Okay, I'll stay right here. Remember, at this point, I'm not even still the endorsed candidate. And, you know, we met with Dave Sanko, who a lot of people in this room know, and that started the campaign. Now, I want to flash forward a little bit to a very important point that I want to make. So we're in the middle of debates, and the turning point in this race, remember, Carl Churkin had been named as freshman of the year, and he hadn't yet been elected, but it was in all the Politico magazines. He was freshman of the year. He's going to be the superstar, and he hadn't even been elected yet. We knew something about Carl that's very, for us in the room, you might find interesting. We knew that in the race when he ran first against Carl Churkin, that his wife had not voted for him. Now you got to be sitting there like I would and be saying, how would you know how she voted? She didn't show up to vote. So we never used it, but we could have run a commercial that said not even Carl Churkin's wife would have voted for him. A little rough, right? We did not do that. Don't do that. That's a bad one. But it was true. So we're at the synagogue, and Larry has decided he's going to do my introduction. When the men's club has invited us, and Steve Rovner's done his introduction of Carl Churkin. And Larry starts, and I'm taking notes based upon what Carl Churkin had said in an opening as to what I want to say. So I'm feverishly writing down notes, and I'm not watching, and I suddenly hear all this screaming. And it's, you're nothing but a political operative, and blah, 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 blah. Well, at the front table, I have two people from Harrisburg. One has a camera, like in a potted plant with a little napkin over it. She's filming the whole thing. And I'm thinking, they're talking about the two people at the table, and I look up, and they're talking about Larry. His speech was so good and so powerful about how thoughtful he wanted to be before he decided to stand in front of somebody and to endorse them. And if we think about endorsements, and you know I've endorsed Rudy Thomas. When you think about you're endorsing somebody...
Excuse me, that's the first time that's ever happened here. Trust me, it's not.
Don't worry about it.
I booby-trapped it. No, when you think about endorsing somebody, think about how many times you've done so. You only do so after you've thought about it, after you've really given it some deep thought, and that's what Larry was doing. And I was so touched by that when he did that and he said those words. And I was so personally offended by the behavior of Carl Churkin. He absolutely wigged out. We ended up using it as a commercial in ways. And that was the turning point of the election. He just lost it because he acted inappropriately. He attacked his family, he embarrassed Larry's family. And here's what I want to say about Larry. Larry is a great person because he doesn't move his ideals. He doesn't bend. As some of you who work with him may be frustrated with him at times that he doesn't bend, but once he comes up with an opinion, and look, you've called me from time to time and said, hey, can you get him to do this? Well, you kidding? I'm not even going to try. But if you think about being an elected official, that's what Frank Ferry does, that's what Barry, that's what you do, many of the people in this room, you stick to your principles and ideals, you try to work within them, and that's the kind of people we want to be as Republicans. I'm going to fasten it up, expedite it a little bit, but there are some other things I want to say. In the time period, 15 years, 1 month, and 1 day, I was in Harrisburg. I had the opportunity in Harrisburg to be with a lot of people for an extended period of time. I can tell you that you have sent some of the finest people that I know, Tommy Tomlinson, Chuck McElhenney, Kathy Watson, the whole list are just phenomenal people. Now you may not know that the rest of Harrisburg doesn't view the group exactly that way. When you win, you will be joining a club of people that cause leadership angst at times. It's not that we're trying to be difficult, it's that we're trying to represent you. And sometimes the ideas and thoughts they have, even though they fit within the Republican framework, aren't what you want us to do. And the last time, and I consider it the highest compliment, one of the leaders came over to me and said, why is it always Bucks County? Now it used to be, why isn't it always Bucks County and Delaware County? We take that as a compliment. You got to work to convince us that you're on the right path. You got to be on the right path, and if you're not, we're going to tell you. And if we are, we're going to be with you. So I've had a great family support, and though my son's not here, I got to tell you, he grew up in a really strange situation. in that all he's ever known is politics. He was probably 5, I think, yeah, when we started. And he had to compete with all of you for my attention. So to some degree, you know, it's hard. And you know, right? You know how hard it is for Nick and the like, that you know, they're competing for attention, especially during this formative year. So while Drew's not here, I do have to thank him. I have to thank every one of my committee people out in the cold, getting signatures. Not one time were we even close to, we didn't have enough. And Frank will tell you that most of the rest of the state does not have the support system we have. And ultimately what I got to say is I want to thank each and every one of you for being friends, for being supporters, for being confident, for telling me when you may not have known that I didn't have as much confidence as you thought, or may have questioned some of the things that you never doubted, and you said, hey, I support you, and you're with me, and the kind words you said. And then obviously I'd be remiss if I didn't thank my staff. In the end, you can't do what we do well without great legislative staff. I'll share a funny story. So the first day, no, it wasn't the first day. The first day I was in office, I got somebody who worked for a long time in another office. I won't mention her name, but so the first phone call comes in. She answers it because she's experienced. And I picked up the phone first, and I didn't know what to do, so you know, I let her handle it. And she came over to me and she said, they want to know how they're registered. And I said, no, this is what they want. I forget what it was. She said, no, I know they want how they're registered. Without picking them up, she calls up Board of Elections. Blah, 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 blah. Picks up the phone. You're registered, and I don't remember what it was. Independent, Republican, Democrat, whatever. I'm like, whoa, this is bad already. Time out. So I called HRCC and I said, I'd rather have nobody than somebody who was just that off on what they wanted. You know, you got to listen to people. You got to take people at their worst moments. And Teresa comes in as my first hire. Now, I'll back up a little bit. I know this is boring for some of you, but it's great for us. So she's in my living room, and she's basically a fashion computer expert. Both, I don't know how both fit in one category, but that's what she is. She is an expert. And I met her, and I met her because of Tom and Chris, and instantly just, you know, fell in love with her. Larry's not here anymore. Fell in love with her. She has never once raised her voice with anyone. She has never expressed dissatisfaction with anybody. Co-workers, even me, thankfully. But she's not a pushover. She does, in her own graceful way, tell you what she's thinking. She's been a great advisor, as has Pat has been. Pat's got a monstrous heart. Where is Pat? She's still here? Yeah. There you are. Sorry. Pat has compassion. She has heart. I had Tom Doherty, who is a great, great individual. So I've been blessed with great staff, and in the end, I'll tell you how good it is, and this is really the secret once you win the first time. People will come up to you at election time and say, oh, thank you so much for what you did, and you'll be sitting like, no idea what you're talking about. And you don't fake it, you don't say, you just say, well, I've got great staff. And that's what happens with every elected official. 90% of the things that happened, that got done, that were finished, we're off in Harrisburg having fun. That's sometimes fun. Sometimes fun, sometimes misery. But they're great sounding boards because they represent the community, their voices, as is every single committee person. When you screw up, they will let you know. They'll tell you that they think you did. Hopefully they'll forgive you because it's only a vote. And in the end, could you really tell, anybody in this room really tell what I passed, other than Larry? I know he knows every bill and every fact and every do you know what I did? Do you know what I didn't do? What was the important thing? And the way I view it, what we do that's important is all right here. And what I would share with all of you that I've learned just from, getting old, anything big we do as a group, together. Think about the National Cemetery. That happened by a complete fluke. I went to a meeting by chance, never had been there before, never went again. All the way down on Route 1, almost on City Line Avenue, and they talked about where the next national cemetery would go, and it was all ginned up that it was going to go to Chester County. The original thought was they were going to put it next to Graterford Prison so they'd have free labor. And the veterans said, no way. So it was all ginned up that it was going to go there. I hear a meeting, a presentation, and they basically say, we want 300 acres and one owner. And I'm driving home and I'm thinking, well, the Rook Farm's only about 200 acres. We don't have any acreage that big. Then I started thinking, oh, wait a minute. In Upper Makefield, there's 5 farms, and if you add them together, they're 311 acres. And they're owned by one owner in that the equitable owners told. Hey, what the heck? And we start floating the idea. Jim Greenwood gets involved. We go out. It's pouring rain. It's cruddy weather. You got to know the inside of politics. This is just phenomenal. Our inspector is out there. Jim Greenwood's out there.
Was Fitz involved in it?
Fitz was not yet. He was not yet there. We're walking out, and Arlen, cameras are all there. It goes like this, and he says, "Gentlemen, walk this way." Well, Bob, you know my opponent. My opponent is not good on the environment. And as he's walking, I'm thinking, I can't be in this business. He's shaking down Bob Toll for money for his race while we try and take his property from him. Oh, I can't do that. Arlen was a phenomenal representative. We twisted your arms at every poll to vote for this guy. You said, I can't believe we're going to vote for this guy again. Every time I asked him for something, he said yes. And every time he said yes, he delivered. So I know you didn't like his votes and all, but for Bucks County, he always came through.
Can I stand up and tell you something? This is a little boots on the ground story about you. We walked the cemetery. We have a beautiful cemetery down the street from my house. And Scott got involved and walked the cemetery with a bunch of politicians, including our inspector. We walked it again another time back later. You took me to Harry Fox's office to get his blessing, and that's when Commissioner Fitzpatrick poked his head in, and we got him involved. And it's because of you that we got this initiated, and Mike Fitzpatrick
Brought him home,
and he was involved in it. He met with Toll. We fought him for 7 years to get the cemetery, and you're one of the principal people that helped us out.
Yeah.
Well,
You know what, Scott? I would just like to add to that, because I was very involved with you in that, and you came to me very early on with that, and I think that's one of your greatest accomplishments. I really mean that.
well, again, I want to say, we never get that done if we're not all on the same page, working together, and it was a tough fight. And there were times that I was absent. There was a time when I had to be absent. Bob Toll, unbeknownst to me, had told the group, because I wrote a letter to the editor, to the Courier, and I said, you know, is Toll a good corporate citizen? And I didn't say they weren't, but, you know, a good corporate citizen wanted this, we got it done. The point of all this is really just to say, if we're going to have an effective representative when she wins, and let's start to talk about what we have to do to make sure she wins. Look, this is very personal to me. It should be very personal to you. Most of you in this room, someone is going to be your representative very shortly. Someone is either going to be interested in national issues, Solberry will not contribute to global warming, whatever, you know, the issue is, or somebody's going to be working with you across the table, listening to you, asking for your advice, seeking your assistance. Somebody's going to be able to not get things done, somebody's going to be able to get things done. This is personal to Ellen and I. We're asking you to do whatever you can to communicate with whoever you need to in the next few weeks to make sure, number one, they know that I'm no longer the state representative. Some people have not figured that out. Number two, that their kids need to complete absentee ballots because they'll still be in college. And number three, they need to come out and vote if they care. The split, the philosophical differences are wider than Carl Churkin and I. You can't even imagine how extreme they are. They are just that wide. And, you know, if Larry had run, she and I'd be supporting Larry. Larry chose for very personal reasons, which I respect, that he did not run. Doesn't mean she wasn't a close second, sorry. She's cute.
See how he does this? He makes everybody happy.
But we really, really need, it's going to be generally a low turnout. There's some excitement about yesterday's results. By the way, we served with him. He wasn't the perfect candidate for our party. She is the perfect candidate. She's got a proven record of working in the school district and doing the right things. Let's make sure that we can get, I don't want anyone else that's on the ballot to be my representative.
Got it.
Yeah, and I don't think you want someone. So I'll close by saying, Ellen, thank you. Drew, I know you're not here, but thank you very much. Larry, thank you for being the best campaign manager I could have possibly ever had. Never a doubt, always 100% behind me. Best of success, keep up that stiff back. Tom and Teresa, thank you for Chris. You gave me a couple gifts. She's one of them. And the other gift was, you know, the confidence to say, let's do this. And you had confidence in me every time, and you're both my dear friends. Best of success.
You were never not there for us, Scott, and I think I speak for everybody in this room. He was never not there for us in all the years.
Thank you for supporting me, for being there for me. It really meant a lot. Do pay your parking tickets. I am not fixing any tickets. If you come to Philadelphia and you come to my office, we'll validate your parking in our garage. And if you don't pay your tickets, I guess we'll come loot you and take your parking. I'm enjoying myself. I think most of you can tell that some of the pressure is off, but for those that are still in office, let's also not forget Frank Ferry. He's a good friend, and we need to make sure that he and Tommy are supported. Marguerite, remember, you know, Marguerite's running for Senate for most of us, for some of us in this room. She's going to need our support. And, you know, best to all of you, best health. Tom, again, thank you so much for being a backbone and a sounding board. You know, he's quiet, but when you want advice from somebody, that's the guy to go to. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm going to take only a few minutes. I will learn to...
This is Wendy Thomas.
So, I just have to start with, Scott told many stories. One quick story, because I just started campaigning, and I have an election in 12 weeks, so it's a very, very fast process for me. So I've knocked on almost 2,000 doors. Yeah. And if we don't get any more snow, I'll get to 10,000. But, so you knock on somebody's door, right? You wait for them to come and they peer out. They decide to open it. They open it this much. And I say, hi, I'm Wendy Thomas. I'm running for Pennsylvania State. They frown at you because it's not really normal door knocking election time. I say, Scott Petri retired, I'm not sure if you're aware, and they open the door, they go, what? Yep. That gets you. And we talk about Scott for 5 minutes. No.
It worked.
And then, exactly. And then I say, I'm going to do what Scott did. But it's very true. He is the most beloved political candidate I've ever seen, and I appreciate it.
You're gonna make me cry.
I can't tell you how much I appreciate his support. He's done a great job for us, and I will continue to. Just want to say thank you because, of course, all the contributions that everybody in this room made tonight go to my campaign, and I really appreciate that. Thank you. We are out working hard. We are knocking on doors. We are calling. We are having events. Although this will forever be my official kickoff. I just want to make sure we put a couple boards outside in mud. I'm going to step on them. I'm out, and if anybody in this room can gather 15, 20 people in their house, particularly in the areas where it's a little challenging to walk, you tell me the date, it'll go on my calendar, I'll show up. Because what we need to do is meet those people and get those people to go to other people. My background, in case you all don't know, I do sit on the Council Rock School Board. As I said, I've been there for 9 years. Actually, when I leave here, I'm going to a school board meeting where at the end I will be leaving that position. But I've been on the board for a lot of years. And one time, recently, a couple weeks, I was knocking doors and someone said to me, well, how many Democrats and how many Republicans are on the school board? And I said, I don't know, because I don't worry about that. I worry about how I improve the education for your kids, or make your school safe, or keep your taxes down. That's what I worry about. Whoever wants to join me in a cause for the good of the people and to improve things, they're the people I want to work with. And, well, probably most of us in this room are Republicans, and I truly appreciate the Republican support, and I've been a lifelong Republican. At the end of the day, if I come back here, and I hope I will, in 6 months or a year and talk to you, it doesn't matter how many doors I knocked on or how many hours I worked. It only matters what results I can bring back to the people of Bucks County. And so you'll hear that in my campaign. What I'm about is telling you what I can actually get done. I can give you a lot of political sound bites of things that might make people happy or they think they want to hear, but if I go to Harrisburg and I can't work with anybody, I can't get anything done for you guys. And that's how it was on the school board, and that's how it is in Harrisburg. So what I need from you is I need you to get the word out, because people still don't know there's an election. People aren't going to expect to vote. If you have independent friends, and most of us do, they don't think they vote at all in May. So I need you to get people out, because the Democrats are angry. They're motivated. And it's, you can tell when you knock on doors where somebody's been, and then they stand and talk to you. And, I've had a few, they start off, I'm not going to vote for you. I'm like, well, you're trying to teach somebody in Washington a lesson, and I'm going to Harrisburg, and I'm going to try to work for you, and I'm going to be here. And then by the end, it usually, frankly, goes pretty well, because they want reasonable people. That's really what they're looking for. So if you could spread the word, I appreciate the donations. As Larry said, we need the donations to keep coming, but we also need the people to get the word out. And if you could open your phones and put a reminder in your phone and put down May 12th or thereabout and say, remind all my friends to go out on Tuesday, because everybody is going to forget on May 15th, or they're going to get busy, or they're going to be away. So if everyone in this room reminds themselves to put out an email to their people, we'll get people out, and we will have a successful campaign, and we'll win in May. Okay. So thank you, everyone. I do want to thank Tom and Carol. I want to thank Ellen. She put this together. My team, I have many people here who are working for me. I'm not going to try to name everybody because almost everybody in this room has done something to help me get elected, and I truly appreciate that. So have a great night. Enjoy the food. Enjoy the wine. So sorry. And have a good evening, and thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.